always engaged in welfare activities for all living entities, and who never contemplate harming anyone, are always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who carries his disc, the Sudarshan Chakra, and acts as supreme time to kill the demons and protect his devotees. The devotees always take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. Therefore, at all times, even if threatened by decapitation, they remain unagitated. For them, this is not at all wonderful. In other words, it's normal. So in this verse, 4 things are described. If you follow these 4 things, you're protected. You get the mercy of the Lord. Let's go over them once more. Number 1 quality, that you know that the soul is separate from the body. Do we know that? Yes. Okay, that's good. We qualify. Who are liberated from the invincible knot in the heart. Well, we're working on it. Who are always engaged in welfare activities for all living entities. Well, we're going out distributing books, Harinam, serving prasad, so we're definitely doing that. And who never contemplate harming anyone. I think that's us. We don't contemplate harming anyone. Such people are always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hey, we qualify 75%, and we're working on the other one, being liberated from the invincible knot in the heart. So our position is pretty good. Yeah? Are you happy about that? Yeah. Okay, good. Srila Prabhupada's purport. These are some of the great qualities of a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. First, a devotee is firmly convinced of his spiritual identity. He never identifies with the body. He is firmly convinced that the spirit soul is different from the body. Consequently, he fears nothing. Even though his life may be threatened, he is not at all afraid. He does not even treat an enemy like an enemy. Such are the qualifications of devotees. Devotees are always fully dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Lord is always eager to give them all protection in all circumstances. So here in this verse, it's stated that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always protecting his devotees, and he acts to kill the demons and protect his devotees. And then in the purport, Prabhupada says, devotees are always fully dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Lord is always eager to give them all protection in all circumstances. So to me, that reminds me of Prahlad Maharaj, who is fully dependent on the mercy of the Lord, and on Lord Nrsingadev, who is always eager to give all protection in all circumstances. We have to follow in the footsteps of Prahlad Maharaj, because he's one of the 12 Mahajans, one of the 12 greatest devotees in our line. In the 7th canto, this pastime of Prahlad Maharaj and Lord Nrsingadev is explained in great detail by Sukadeva Goswami. And there are wonderful prayers by Prahlad Maharaj that Srila Prabhupada loved. He loved the Leela of Prahlad Maharaj and Lord Nrsingadev, and especially the prayers that Prahlad Maharaj offered to the Lord after Lord Nrsingadev had killed the demon Hiranyakashipu. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that these are some of the great qualities of a pure devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these are the qualities that we're developing. We have to be convinced that the soul is separated from the body. We are not this body. We are the spirit soul. We identify with the body, unfortunately. We do this because we've been misidentifying ourselves with the body for millions of births. It's a deep samskara in our consciousness. And I'm going to share with you something that happened to me that really explains this fact and how we have to overcome this. In 1974, I was living in the Toronto temple. And I was getting up very, very early, chanting the rounds, then coming down for Mangalarti and everything. And one afternoon, the temple president asked me, will I go and pick up some devotees who have just arrived and they're coming to the temple? So I said, okay. So I got in the car and drove. Now, I had gotten up very early that morning. I had just had a big lunch, so I was feeling a little tired. Anyway, I went and picked up these devotees, and then I'm driving back to the temple. Now I'm driving back to the temple and I'm feeling really tired, really sleepy, trying to keep awake. Well, what happened? I fell asleep while driving the car. Fortunately, it was in the city, so we weren't going so fast. But there was a red light, and I fell asleep, and I just plowed into the back of a Mercedes. That woke me up. The man came out of his car. He was angry. I rolled down my window. He came up to me, he said, "You hit me." And being a new devotee, I said, "I didn't hit you, I hit your car." He was identifying with his car. "You hit me." And we do the same thing. If someone hits you, you think, "You hit me." We identify with the body, just like he identified with the car. So we exchanged license numbers and insurance and everything. And then when I came back to the temple, I explained to the temple president what had happened. And he was such a nice temple president. He said, "That's okay. You're a new devotee. And we have insurance, so don't worry about it." I was expecting he was going to chop off my head, but he was so sweet. And even to this day, that was 1974, so that was 48 years ago, right? We're very close friends. We still have a close association since those, for 48 years. But the idea is misidentifying ourselves. Everyone is suffering from an identity crisis. And it comes up in the weirdest situations. That when I hit his car, he said, "You hit me." But, but because I knew the philosophy, I said, "I didn't hit you, I hit your car." He didn't like that answer, but it was true. Now, similarly, someone may insult me, but they're not insulting me, they're just insulting my body for some reason. They don't know me. I don't even know who I am. I'm the spirit soul in this body, and I'm trying to understand who I am, what is my eternal rasa with Krishna. So even I'm suffering from an identity crisis, and we all misidentify with the body. But we're working on that. We're working on this conception that we're not the body and that we're spirit soul. So Prabhupada says that the pure devotees, they're 100% convinced, firmly convinced of our spiritual identity. They never think that they're the body. They never think that they're the car. You understand the point? So this is the first thing, that the pure devotee never identifies with the body. Why? Because he's firmly convinced that the spirit soul is different from the body and that we are the spirit soul. We're not the body. So we have to be able to distinguish between what is the spirit soul and what is the body. We have to take care of the body. We have to keep the body clean. We have to take care of the bodily functions. There's hunger, there's thirst. You have to go to the bathroom. You have to do so many things. But we understand who we are. Now, what happens every morning? Every morning, we all wake up, we go into the bathroom, we look in the mirror, and we think, that's me. The men are thinking, oh, I need to shave. The women are thinking, oh, I got a gray hair, or I got a wrinkle. But actually, we're not that reflection in the mirror. So already, right from the get-go, we're in the wrong consciousness, the wrong mentality. How to solve this problem? It's very easy. You have to print up in your computer and print it out, Aham Brahmasmi, and you stick it on your mirror with glue. So you wake up in the morning, you go into the bathroom, you see the mirror, the first thing you see is Aham Brahmasmi, I am spirit soul. Immediately you're in the right consciousness. Okay, I'm looking at the body, but I'm not the body, I'm spirit soul. It's very important that right from the very first moment, the beginning of the day, that I become fixed, that I'm spirit soul. Not that I am the body. I don't want to come into the temple room for Mangalarti thinking that I'm the body. And I do that because of force of habit. I've done it for all my life, plus I've done it for so many births. So when you put on your mirror, Aham Brahmasmi, I am spirit soul, immediately you're reminded that of the Shastra, of your spiritual identity. And that carries you through the whole day. So Prabhupada's saying that he never identifies with the body. He's firmly convinced that he's the spirit soul, different from the body. And then what happens? What happens when you go through life that you're firmly convinced that you're the spirit soul and that you are not the body? Prabhupada says, consequently, he fears nothing. Because the spirit soul can never be harmed, not burned by fire, not killed by a sword or a knife or a gun, can never be harmed. And even so, Prabhupada says, even though his life may be threatened, he is not at all afraid. Because if the body is destroyed, the spirit soul is not destroyed. You just remain fully conscious, Aham Brahmasmi, Hare Krishna, and the body falls to the ground, and you see the Vishnu Dutas waiting there, okay, inviting you to step into the Pushpa Viman, the flower airplane, to take you back to Goloka Vrindavan. That's what happens when you're fixed in your spiritual identity at the time of death. So we have to give up fear of losing the body, fear of the body being harmed, because we're thinking that I am the body. So then this is the difference between the pure devotee who never has any fear. Abhay, he's fearless. Abhay Charanaravinda, A.C., Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Abhay Charanaravinda, he's fearless. Why? Because he's taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. Prahlad Maharaj. He was only a 5-year-old boy, but he had no fear. He was 100% convinced that he was spirit soul, and he was 100% convinced that he'd be protected by the Lord. Not a single shred of doubt in his mind. So Hiranyakashipu tried to kill Prahlad in so many ways, but he could not do it because he was protected by the Lord. So, the pure devotees, like Prahlad Maharaj, like Srila Prabhupada, like Jagabharat, like all the devotees that we're reading about, coming in the parampara, we also want to attain to that level. It doesn't happen in an instant. It's a process. It takes time, gradually, step by step. And we make more and more advancement by the proper chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We should be chanting these divine names of the Supreme Personality with feeling, with reverence, with devotion. Prabhupada explained that we should chant the holy names of the Lord with care and attention. That's what he taught me. Chant with care and attention. So what does care mean? Care has a double meaning. Care means carefully. We do it carefully, that we're actually chanting properly. And care also means that I really care for the holy name. I have some feeling for the holy name. And care and attention. Attention means fully focused on the holy name. No other thought. I'm completely fixed on hearing the holy name, absorbing my consciousness in the holy name. To the extent that we do that, to that extent, we're going to make advancement in spiritual life. And what does it mean to make advancement in spiritual life? We speak about advancing in spiritual life, but what does it mean? It means that you become more and more convinced you're not the body and you're only the spirit soul. You no longer identify with the body. So if someone hits you, you say, oh, you didn't hit me. You hit my body. So what? You can never harm me. You can never hit me. We're convinced. We're 100% fixed in that consciousness. But I gave the example when I hit that guy's car. He was so much in illusion about his identity that when you hit his car, he said, you hit me. He was identifying with his car. And in Germany, a lot of people identify with their car. I have a Porsche. That's something very special if you have a Porsche. You know, or the top line of a Mercedes. You're very proud, you know. I've worked hard all my life and now I have this Mercedes, you know. And if you hit his Mercedes, you hit me. He's angry that you've harmed him in some way because you hit his Mercedes or his Porsche. So we're not at that level of Maya, of misidentification. But we're still thinking to some extent that we're the body, and we have to overcome this. So this is the point. So these are the 4 things that Shukadeva Goswami is emphasizing to Maharaj Parikshit. Number 1, that you know that the soul is separated from the body. We have to know it. Now there's 3 levels of knowing. So I'm going to go through those 3 levels of knowing. The first level of knowing is called information. You have information that you're not the body, that you're the spirit soul. This is the information we're given when we first come to the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Even if you don't come to the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, you can Google, "You're not the body." And a Google search will come up, "You're not the body, you're the spirit soul. This is a teaching of the Hare Krishnas," or whatever. And you can, this is the information age. You can Google any information, okay? So that's what we have when we first come and join ISKCON. Now we have this information, we're not the body. When does the information become knowledge? Who knows?
When we use it practically.
When we act according to this.
When we take up the process of Bhakti Yoga and we act according to the teachings of the Shastra. Okay? That's when it becomes knowledge, because we're living it. You can go to any university and speak to a professor of comparative religions and say, "You're not the body." And he'll say, "Oh yeah, you're not the body. This is one of the teachings of the Vedas. The Hare Krishnas are totally into it." He knows this. He has that information. But he's not living the lifestyle. He doesn't have knowledge. He only has information. And that information he shares with the students. And then they write it down. They memorize it, write it down, the information on the exam, and they pass and go to the next level. It's all just information. There's no knowledge there because they're not living the teaching. They're not following a process. So we are doing that. So for us, that information is becoming knowledge. Now the next question, the third level of knowing. When does the knowledge become wisdom?
Through personal experience, or when we go through not only doing the process, but we have realization.
When we have the realization, okay, let me make it more clear. We have wisdom when our every thought, our every word, and our every action is in total synchronization with the Shastra, with Krishna. That's real realization. And that realization comes from Krishna. He explains this in Bhagavad Gita so many different times. My two favorite shlokas are 10:10 and 15:15. So the 10:10 is Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upriyanti te. For those who are constantly engaged in worshiping me. That means following the process, constantly. If you're coming to the temple every day, taking darshan every day, chanting Hare Krishna every day, eating prasadam every day, then that's constant, every day, your whole life. I did it every day. It may not be at the level of constant of Prabhupada, but it's at our level of being constant. We did it every day. He did it every day. He did it at a much deeper, more profound level, but we're still we're on the path. We're doing it every day. So for those who are doing it every day, who are constantly engaged in bhajatam, priti purvakam, with devotion, dadami buddhi yogam tam, Krishna says, I give that intelligence of yoga, bhakti yoga, yenamam upayatite, so that you can come to me. He gives you intelligence, so you know how to live the process of bhakti yoga. In other words, so that you do it correctly, you do it properly. Because if you do it wrong, you don't get the result. If you do it right, you get the result. If you do it wrong, you don't get the result. And I always like to give the example of two devotees in the temple. One devotee is chanting his japa, completely fixed, hearing the holy name. His mind is totally absorbed. And the other one is chanting japa, but his mind is wandering like everything, and he's thinking this, that, and the other thing. Now the first person is going to go back home, back to Godhead. The second person wants to go back home, back to Godhead also, but he's not qualified. He wants to get the same benefit that the first person does by doing it correctly, but he's doing it incorrectly, with no attention, with care and attention. This is what Prabhupada said. But when the mind's wandering everywhere, we're not attentive. And we can't expect to get the same result as someone else who's doing it with care and attention. Supposing I'm chanting my japa, that my mind is all over the place, and someone else, my god brother, is doing it paka, totally absorbed, full of devotion. And everybody's thinking he's going to go back home, back to Godhead. Now I also want to go back home, back to Godhead, but I'm doing it wrong. Then why should I have that desire to go back home, back to Godhead when I'm doing it, not following the proper way of chanting? That means I have a cheating mentality. I want to get the same benefit as someone who's doing it right, and I'm doing it wrong, but I want to get the same benefit. That's called a cheating mentality. I won't get the same benefit until I do it correctly. Clear?
Yes.
So, getting back to the 4 points. So the second point that the Sukadeva is explaining here is that we become liberated from the invincible knot in the heart. We chant the holy names with full attention, so we're no longer attached to the material things. We don't longer have attachment for material desires. Why are we in this material world? Because we have material desires. That's why we take birth again and again and again and again. Once you give up your material desires, you have no more material attachments, zero, then you're already liberated. You're on the platform of pure devotion. You don't have any attachment for the material world or anything of the material world. And there's no reason for you to be here anymore. The only reason we're here is because of those attachments. Now we've given up those attachments, there's no reason for us to be here. So Krishna says, go get that devotee, bring him back home to Godhead. He should be home with us. He should be joining our Nitya Leela. He has no desire for material attachment. Go bring him back home. Sends the Vishnu Dutas to bring us back home. So that's the second point, liberated from the invincible knot in the heart. And third, who are always engaged in welfare activities for others. So this is something Srila Prabhupada has taught us, that we go out. It's the Sankirtan movement. We go out to benedict other people. This is a function of sadhus. This is what pure devotees do. They dedicate their lives to helping others, to benefiting others. Now, we may not be pure devotees yet, but we're following in the footsteps. We're also going out to benedict the conditioned souls, to give them the benefit of hearing the holy name, of getting a book, of taking prasadam. So we may not be at the level of Srila Prabhupada, but we're following in his footsteps, right? We're following in his footsteps. We're doing everything that he's doing. He taught us, Srila Prabhupada taught us how to live the life of a pure devotee. We may not be there yet, but this is our education. Just like you go to the university, you don't get your degree the first day you go there, you get your degree after studying. Similarly, we get our degree in our spiritual education after following the process and living the teachings. Living the teachings, we have to become living truth. What we speak is what we live. What we think is who we are. Well, as we preach to people. We have to speak soul to soul, heart to heart. That's how we connect. So that's the third qualification, pure devotee, is explained by Sukadeva Goswami. And then the fourth, we never contemplate harming anyone else. We're always the well-wisher of every living entity. Now, if I speak badly about someone, he's a jerk, he's bogus, he's this or he's that, then I'm harming them. It's verbal harm, it's verbal violence, or maybe I'm thinking like that. Mental violence. Violence doesn't always mean that I take a gun and shoot you, or that I hit you with my fist. That's violence. But there's verbal violence and mental violence also. So devotees never harm anyone. They're always the well-wisher of everyone. Even the most fallen, conditioned soul, although we don't associate with them. But in our mind, we are wishing them well. Just like Prahlad Maharaj, when Lord Nrsingadev said, I'll give you any benediction you want, he said, now that I have your darshan, who needs anything? Who needs benedictions? But if you want to give me some benediction, then you bless my father, then he'll come to the lotus feet of the Lord. So this is a pure devotee. This is the mood of a devotee. So now we know the four things that we have to accomplish in this life. And then we'll go back to Godhead, 100% guaranteed. And this is called sadhana siddha. I attain perfection through my sadhana. And what does sadhana mean? Sadhana means my yoga practice. What is my yoga practice? Chanting japa, chanting kirtan, attending the arti, doing guru puja, honoring Mahaprasad, going out on some kirtan, distributing the holy name and distributing the books. That is my yoga practice. That is my sadhana. So when I do my yoga practice, then I will attain to that level where I can now be considered a pure devotee. Now, what we consider a pure devotee, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of us consider a pure devotee to be perfect in every way. But what was Prabhupada's definition of a pure devotee? Because we should have the same opinion as Prabhupada. We shouldn't have a different opinion. You all agree?
Yeah.
So in 1968, on a morning walk, Tamal Krishna asked Srila Prabhupada, he said, how many pure devotees are there in the world? A good question. Now in 1968, we only had about 6 or 7 temples. So Prabhupada turned to Aniruddha, because Tamal Krishna was a new devotee. So he asked, how many pure devotees are in the world? So then Prabhupada turned to Aniruddha, who was the president of Los Angeles Temple, and he said, how many devotees do we have in our movement now? So Aniruddha said, well, there's New York, San Francisco, about 75, Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada turned to Tamal Krishna and said, there are 75 pure devotees. Why? Because they're purely motivated. If you're purely motivated, Prabhupada considers you a pure devotee. You may not have reached that highest level, but your motivation is pure. You're purely motivated. You're purely motivated to understand that I'm the spirit soul, not the body. You're purely motivated to go out and distribute the knowledge and the prasad and the books, the holy name to conditioned souls. You're purely motivated not to harm anyone, to be the well-wisher of everyone. You're purely motivated that you're convinced that I'm the spirit soul and I have given up fear. I no longer fear anything. So Prabhupada's definition of a pure devotee is people who are purely motivated. And if you come and give up your life in the material world, give up whatever future you may have in the material world, and take up the process of Bhakti Yoga, Prabhupada considers you to be purely motivated. Now we have to maintain that pure motivation all the way through our life. And in the beginning, it may seem easy. Oh, I just do this for the rest of my life? No problem, I can do it. But as the years go by, it takes more and more conviction because you have to be in the mode of goodness to maintain. If you're not in the mode of goodness, you can't maintain it. This we've seen. People or devotees, sometimes they're in the mode of passion or the mode of ignorance, and they can't maintain the practice of Bhakti Yoga. So we have to come to the mode of goodness, and then we'll be able to maintain it for the rest of our life. And I remember in 1975 in Los Angeles, when I was in the Brahmachari ashram, and Prabhupada was saying to just maintain, just follow all my instructions as I've given to you, and you go back home, back to Godhead in this life. We all thought, oh, this is easy. But as the years go on, and Prabhupada leaves the planet and you get older, it's not like it was in the beginning. You have to come to the mode of goodness to maintain it. So, Sukadeva Goswami, he concludes his talk to Maharaj Parikshit, and he says, the devotees always take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. Therefore, at all times, even if threatened by decapitation, threatened by having your head cut off, which is pretty heavy. That's heavy. But even if threatened by decapitation, they remain unagitated. Oh, you can't harm me. I'm not the body, I'm spirit soul. For them, this is not wonderful. This is normal. This is normal for the pure devotees. For anyone else, it's like amazing. But for a pure devotee, it's normal. And thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 9th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Supreme Character of Jadabharat. So he was at that level. Prabhupada was at that level. Will we be at that level? That's the question I have to ask myself. Will I come to that level? If I don't come to that level, what happens? So we asked Srila Prabhupada, what happens if I'm only 90% there? If we're sincerely trying and we did our best, Krishna will give us his kripa. Then we become kripa siddhas. We get the mercy of Krishna. He says in the 9th chapter, Yoga kshemam bahamyaham. I will protect your yoga practice. I'll carry what you lack and preserve what you have. Carry what you lack. So we only made it 90%. We're lacking 10%. Krishna, he can carry that 10%. No problem. I can make it 100%. Come back home, back to Godhead. But Prabhupada said, don't count on that. Do your very best to become 100%. But don't think, oh, it's okay, if I don't make it, Krishna will... No, that's not how it works. Do your very best, and if by some good fortune, by some causeless mercy, Krishna makes up the last 10%, then we go back home, back to Godhead. But don't think, oh, I can relax a little bit because Krishna will make it up for me. That is offensive mentality. Hare Krishna. Okay, so I hope that I've explained this properly, the shloka, and if there are any questions, I'd be very happy to answer. Yes?
Hare Krishna, thank you for the class. I was wondering, sometimes when we do distribution, you can feel a lot of fear, like, and the ego comes up, you know, and it can be quite hard to get started. I was wondering if you could share a few words of wisdom about that, overcoming that in the moment. Like, your mind can take over, I find.
Right. This is called react. We react. And we're either reactive or proactive. We're reactive because it's a habit. We're reacting the way we always reacted in the past. Not only in this life, but also in other lives. So we have to overcome this. That's the process of chanting the holy names of the Lord. We purify the heart, purify the mind of all these unwanted things, the anartas, the reactions, the ego, the feeling offended, trying to defend myself. Instead of saying, yeah, you're right, I am a fool, number one. You defend yourself. No, I'm not. How dare you insult me like this? So by chanting the holy names purely, then we become purified. The heart becomes purified of these anartas, unwanted things in the heart, so that they no longer exist. But when we first come to Krishna consciousness, we bring our bag and baggage with us. We're bringing all this stuff with us from so many previous lifetimes. So we can't expect that overnight it's going to change. It's a gradual process, step by step. In Sanskrit we say dire dire. In Bengali we say krame krame. In English we say step by step. So it's a gradual process. And by associating with devotees, following the process, chanting attentively with care and attention, just honoring Mahaprasad, attending the programs, then the heart becomes purified. And you'll see that over time, you become less reactive. The only time that the devotees are reactive is when another devotee is harmed or insulted by some demon. Then we immediately react to protect that devotee. So the famous example is when Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur would go preaching in Navadvip. And then they came across these two brothers, Jagai and Madai. And Madai got really upset at Nityananda for preaching to him. So he threw a pot, an earthen pot, and smashed on Lord Nityananda's head. And blood started coming out. Lord Chaitanya became so angry, so enraged, he became Lord Nrsingadev, ready to kill Madai. But Lord Nityananda said, no, please. In this incarnation, you didn't come to annihilate the deities, the demons. In this incarnation, you came just to purify their hearts. So show some mercy. So Lord Chaitanya will react to protect his devotees. We will react to protect the devotees. If we're out on Harinam Sankirtan and some demon tries to get fresh with one of our ladies, we'll become like Lord Nrsingadev to protect our Vaishnavis, like that. So that is okay. But reacting for the benefit of someone else to protect someone else, that's okay. But not reacting to protect my false ego. That we don't want to do. That we want to become purified from. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
Yours first. I wanted to ask you if you could point out again and highlight some points what it makes for our daily consciousness and acting in this world a difference if we see ourselves as that soul or as a body.
Well, okay, I have different strategies and ideas that I've developed over the years. So what I mentioned earlier was the first thing you want to do is put on your mirror, Aham Brahmasmi, I am spirit soul. So the first thing you become aware of when you wake up is that I'm not this body. And you look in the mirror and say, this body needs a shave, this body needs this body has to brush its teeth. You don't think I'm brushing my teeth, or I need a shave. So in this way you become focused that you're the spirit soul. You're in the shower, you say, thank you, my dear Lord, for this water to allow me to clean myself. You have to be conscious that the water is given by Krishna, and you want to thank him for that water, to clean this body so that I, the spirit soul, can take this clean body into the temple room. And we should know that when we come into the temple room, we're not coming to see the Lord. We're coming so that the Lord sees us. That's why we come to the temple, so the Lord can see us. But we're not the body. We're not coming so the Lord can see the body. We're coming so the Lord can see us as the spirit soul, because I'm in this consciousness, Aham Brahmasmi, and I'm coming in as a devotee, spirit soul, and the Lord is seeing me as a spirit soul. This is a very powerful beginning to your day. And then you carry that through for the rest of the day. Now, Prabhupada gave the example that we will come and do the morning program. We do the whole morning program, we chant our japa, we do the kirtan, we're in the arti, then we take prasad, everything is first class, and we're building up the fire of devotion. The devotional fire is increasing in our hearts. And during the rest of the day, we start fault-finding people, and we start doing things that are not based on the spirit soul, bodily concept of life. And he said, that's like pouring water on the fire. So the beginning of the day, we light the fire of devotion, and the rest of the day we pour water. Build the fire, pour the water. Build the fire, pour the water. You can't make advancement that way. So we have to carry on the whole day, the same mood of devotion, that of spirit soul. And at the end, before you take rest, you can have a heart-to-heart talk with your best friend, who is the Lord, in your heart. Sri Krishna is in your heart, your best friend. You say, my dear Lord, today I tried to do devotional service, but I know I can do better. Please bless me that tomorrow I can do better. And then every day you say, today I did a little better devotional service, but I know I can do still better. And every day you say like that. So you're fixed in your consciousness from the beginning, Aham Brahmasmi, to the end, my dear Lord, I know I can do better. Please bless me that I can do better. So your whole day, you're fixed that you're a devotee of the Lord, a spirit soul, and you're following the path chalked out by the acharyas. So that's the step-by-step daily routine. So you wanted to know the step-by-step, so I hope I've helped you in some way. Hare Krishna. Yes, the back.
Thank you so much for your lecture. The question coming from the question of Anasui Mataji. Yes. So she said we share. And then I was thinking if we share or not, really. Because if I compare the beginning of book distribution for me was so much delight, it was so much flying or something like this, yes. With the time it's getting to be just like a spiritual job. Just to feel a small part, fulfilling your duty for Lord Chaitanya, yes, and then feel satisfied if really some souls then come to the temple or take books seriously. Many not seriously they take, yes. So the books find their persons, not me. The books find the people who can, because that is light coming, light of Bhagavatam coming from the books, it finds the persons. So, and the name, holy name, Hare Krishna mantra is in every book. what will share, Prabhu?
So what, can you tell me what was the exact question she's asking?
I see the question.
Who heard it?
Okay, let's see. Shall I say?
Okay, what is the exact point, the exact question?
The exact point is, so what we share in the street?
What do we share in the
What we
street?
share?
What do you share?
What I share? Yeah, what I
Okay,
share.
so what do we share?
Not such a
We're sharing,
qualified person.
we're sharing what Srila Prabhupada gave to us. We're sharing what he gave to us. What did he give to us? Well, he gave us our daily practice, but we can't share that with someone we just met and then he's only going to speak for 1 minute and then he's gone. So what we can share, what Prabhupada gave us, is either a book or prasad or the holy name. Those 3 things we can share with someone. And that's what we share. And that's what we do. Now, will a person accept it or not accept it? It depends how we approach them. If we approach them as das, 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 anudas, very humble, from the position of the soul, and we connect to them as a soul, and we don't offend their ego, then they'll respond on the heart level, the soul level. Now the thing is that people have to like you. If they don't like you, they're not going to accept anything you say. They're not going to accept anything you want to give them because they don't like you. But if they like you, they want to, they're interested. Oh, I like this person, or what do you have to say? What are you sharing? So you have to learn how to connect with a person in 30 seconds that they like you and you become their friend. So this takes a little maturity. But one of my godbrothers, he was very expert in approaching people. And I'll share with you what he used to do, because he was very successful. He would just approach someone in a very humble state of mind, and he said, "Excuse me, do you believe in God?" And they'll either say yes, no, or I don't know. Those are the only 3 answers. And whatever they answer, then he says, "Then you will love this book." And then you say that when I read this book, my whole life changed. What's mentioned in this book brings good fortune to my life. My whole life has blossomed. And I want to share that with you. You're going to love this. And then what you can do, you can say, of course you have to see, are they receptive? They say, oh, okay. Or they may say, no, I'm not interested, and they go away. But if they're interested, they're receptive, and say, look, I want to share this with you because it benefited me so much and I want you to get the same benefit. I'm going to put my email here at the back of the book. If you have any questions, any doubts, anything, you just contact me. I'm here for you, for your eventual spiritual life. Now you're making a real connection with somebody, And if they start reading the books, they're going to have questions. And they may write to you, you remember me? I got that book from you on the street. Well, I read this and this and this. What does it mean? Then you can preach, So that's what we can give to somebody. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.